now save your progress at any time on the world map, meaning you no longer have to use a longer than normal password or collect a gem or ton of bonus tokens just to simply save the game. On the flip side, bonus rooms such as the Taunt, Brio, and Cortex varieties are now required to get 100% completion, but in this collection you can retry the bonus rooms as many times as you like if you keep dying, and they don't count towards the death penalty if you're trying to get the colored gems, so again, less stressful and more consistent with the other games. However, for all the added tweaks in both gameplay and presentation, Crash Bandicoot 1 is still very much the same game underneath. And in case you didn't watch my original video on it, this game can get pretty difficult. Now, you'll get more than enough extra lives, but platforming can get, pardon the wordplay, insanely intense, especially in stages like Slippery Climb or Wonderland Bridge levels, where it's not uncommon to lose up to a dozen lives because of how precise your landings need to be. This is what fucked me up the most personally. Don't get me wrong, these levels were tricky in the PlayStation 1 original, but here with the new graphics and hitboxes and all that shit, god, these are borderline bad. Just recently, we got DLC in the form of Stormy Descent, a level originally cut from the first game because it was considered too difficult. Too difficult to Crash 1, fucking hell. Now, being able to finally play it is really neat. It's cool that content can finally see the light of day after so many years, but holy shit. If you want a level that perfectly encapsulates the entire challenge of Crash 1 and cranks it up a notch, this is it. Extremely tight jumps, do or die scenarios, and it takes for fucking ever. Okay, that last one doesn't really sum up Crash 1, but I felt it needed to be said, and I'll be damned if I ever attempt to get the time trial relics from this. But yeah, relics were added to both Crash 1 and 2, but in Crash 1's case, damn. I don't bother, because Crash 1 just wasn't designed to be blasted through. Compared to Crash 2 and 3, you don't have the slide, you can't slide jump as a result, there's no belly flop, no added abilities from Crash 3. In Crash 1, you just run and jump. Simple, but a lot of level design doesn't lend itself to the speedrun mentality with how many times you're required to stop and go. This is no doubt the best way to play the original Crash Bandicoot. I just don't see any reason to go back to the PlayStation version unless you're feeling nostalgic. But no matter what, it's still, for the most part, the original Crash Bandicoot with almost all of its ups and downs. I very much enjoyed this revisit, but what I was really anticipating was coming back to Crash Bandicoot 2 and Crash Bandicoot 3. I mean, I really don't want to repeat myself too much here. I love these games to death. Just about everything I go to back, with everything looking remarkably better. The added moves, the more streamlined design, these are some of my favorite platformers in the 90s for a reason. Of course, because these are nearly note for note, that also means that these two come with all their trappings. The jetpack levels in Crash 2, still a piece of shit. You will never convince me that this control scheme was good. I just don't see it. In scenarios where you have to backtrack against the camera, it's just as bad now as it was then, and it wasn't fixed, I guess for the sake of being true to the originals. And some levels are still a nightmare when going for full completion, like Cold Hard Crash, or Beginner, or Future Frenzy, and Crash Bandicoot 3. Those were not changed in the slightest. Okay, you can now see that dickhead of a box in the bonus from the Cold Hard Crash. So, yeah. There are a couple of things that feel a bit different than previously. The animals in Crash 2 and 3 don't quite have the same weight to them, but I'm also not sure if that's just the better animations fucking with me. Either way, it cost me a couple of lives because of mistimed jumps, but that's only because I played the earlier game so many times, so I don't think newcomers will have so much of an issue with this. The jet ski in Crash 3 though, I don't know what the fuck happened here. It's so heavy now, you can't turn as tightly as before. It's the worst when I miss a box and have to sluggishly turn around and pick it up. They aren't so much of a problem when I'm speedrunning them for relics, but if there's one thing the original still has over the remakes, it's certainly these. For everything else, I mean, the motorcycle stages are about the same as before, which I wasn't a fan of previously, so But I guess that means if you enjoyed them, then you'll be happy to know they're pretty much the same here. The plane levels are